What's up, everyone? It's a surprise live because I kind of wanted to make a video about something specific, but it would be a very long video and it'd take more than 10 minutes to talk about it. And so, the 10-minute videos don't really get any play on here. With a million channels and nothing on, how can I ever hope to keep anybody's attention for 10 minutes? That's not a dig at anybody here, because there's people that actually watch a video all the way through, and I appreciate you guys, but that's a long time to watch a video, right? So much respect to anybody that sticks around that long. Respect to you if you stick around for 20 seconds. Give me some of your time in the day. What I'm saying is that, the system itself, its infrastructure, has either intentionally or unintentionally muted our attention spans. With the inundation of useless short information and catchy headlines and "Hey everyone," and the first "Hey, what's going on, guys? I got some news for you." I don't do that. I just talk. So you know how it is. Yeah, I appreciate that, the business. And it's the exception, not the rule. And I get it. I'm not saying that. Like, people don't have, no, it's not people. People's not the problem. It's the infrastructure, it's the system, it's the technology. It's morphing us. It's kind of giving us no choice. And there's this, it's semi-illusion. It's kind of true, but it's also not true, because the world is becoming more complex and there's more things happening all the time. But we're also being given way more information, mostly useless, and made to feel like there's so many things we need to know. And therefore we need to get through a lot of things quickly. And you know what I mean? Like, just get the quick headlines. And of course that messes with the integrity of the information, right? Because we're not digging deep into any particular thing. We're trying to get the meta crawl of the entire internet day to day, because there's so many things going on and so many things have been labeled a threat to our lives that our amygdala goes in overdrive and just was like, I need as much information about as many things as possible because everything's dangerous right now. And that's all happening subconsciously. So there's little control over that. And so if you're able to sit down and chill and like go through an entire podcast or listen to a long video, I mean, props to you, because it can't be easy. Space might be fake. No, I don't think the God of Israel created the universe. And you have to ask yourself, well, who is the God of Israel? Let's start there. It's not a bad place to start. Who is the God of Israel? What does everyone think? I'm curious, because this isn't like a pop quiz or a trick question. Because for me, it even requires me to discuss several things before I. But yeah, it's the artist or God formerly known as Yahweh. Yeah, when you say Yahweh, you're talking about the Judaic God for sure, which is obviously also the Christian God. So. Oh, not the God, not like the God of. See, that's an interesting thing. So the God of Israel is in the state of the idea of Israel, not like the God of the land. Although that's actually the truth. Now, I really want to let's dive into that. You said, never heard of a God being associated with a specific place. Well, have I got news for you, buddy? You're going to like this one. So in Daniel chapter 10, Daniel is fasting. I'm dropping some game on you right now, so whip the notebooks out right now, folks. In Daniel chapter 10, Daniel is fasting so that he can kind of commune with the angels. And he fasts for 21 days, I believe. And so he's at 20 days, and he might be struggling with the fast, but he pushes through to 21 days. And then Gabriel comes to Daniel. Oh, I'm going to give you the whole fucking theory on this one. This is what we'll do for the time that we have. So Gabriel, invite your friends to this one because this is a great story. Gabriel the angel comes to Daniel and said, I'm so glad you fasted for that 21st day. If I'm able to save this, Chantal, I will. There's a way to do that where I can download the video and then I'll repost it. Either on here in clips or I'll do it on YouTube or something. So Gabriel comes to him and says, I'm so glad you fasted for 21 days. Had you fasted for only 20 days, I wouldn't have been able to get to you because I was fighting with the prince of Persia. Okay? What does that mean? Who is the prince of Persia? Well, we're not talking about the king's son. We're not talking about a physical prince of Persia. We're talking about a principality. You see, people know that I kind of rag on the blood of Christ thing, and I rag on Christianity, and I pick on some parts of the Bible, but then I also reference the Bible, and people say, how do you reconcile that? Very easy. Some of this information is absolutely like incredible wisdom. Yeah, exactly, Chris. So it's a principality. So that's why there's many important truths in the Bible, by the way. So don't mistake the fact that I have all of this kind of disgust for modern interpretations of Christianity and the Catholic Church and this blood of Christ nonsense. There's deep wisdoms in there. Yes, so he's fighting with the principality of Persia. Now we have to go over to where? To, oh man, I'm forgetting the chapter now. Give me a second. It's like everyone's favorite. It talks about the armor of God. I'm drawing a blank. But it talks about the armor of God. It's a ton of people's favorite quote. It's basically like, we do not wrestle with, this war is not a war of flesh and bones, but of powers, principalities, and wickedness in high places. Can't think of, is it Ephesians chapter 6? Yeah, it's Ephesians chapter 6, yeah. So it's not a war of, 6:12. So it's not a war of, hey, how you doing? It's not a war of flesh and blood, but of powers, principalities, and wickedness in high places. Okay, so what we have to do with the Bible a lot of times is do some detective work, because if you ask your regular preacher or pastor or priest, they have no idea. You won't get a good answer from them. No offense, but like, I've talked to them, I've watched them on here, I've listened to people talk about no one knows. I can bring my mic up higher if that helps. Is that better? You should be able to hear it a little better now. Cool, thank you. So you have to do a little bit of detective work and move around and reference different aspects of it. Okay, so what is a power, a principality, and a wickedness in a high place? I got this nose hair. I still haven't trimmed it, guys. I'll get it soon, don't worry. A power, a principality, and wickedness in high places. Okay? These are levels to what you might call prayer, miracle, and the manifestation of thought forms or tulpas. So a power is if someone tries to cast a spell on you. If someone gives you the evil eye, aka the salty look, and then you go home and you start to get a stomach ache at night because they've thrown some dark energy on you. And people say that's woo-woo nonsense, but consider reading Celestine Prophecies. Consider some of the anecdotal stories of Terence McKenna when he's taking ayahuasca in the Amazon. This stuff is real. We have energy all around our body. We can move that energy. Depending on how we move that energy, it has different effects on other people. I wholeheartedly believe that it's true. I have been able to do things with that energy in real time that show me it's real. So that's how I feel about it. So we'll go from that presumption. I understand I can't prove it to you in this moment, but you also are not on DMT right now. So, but if you were, you could potentially see me create a actual shape and a color with my mind and project it outward with song or language. And many people would be able to agree upon what the shape was and what the color was. Right? Thank you for the follow, friend. So That's a power. This is the fundamental building block of the power. Our conscious energy being made manifest in a part of the spectrum that we don't usually see in the visible. So it lives outside of it, just like the jinn live on the outside of fire, live on the edge of fire, as it says in the Quran. This is all connected. And so we can create powers at any times. So when the Bible talks about powers, that's what it's talking about. It's talking about prayers. It's talking about intention. But intention may manifest into energetic expressions that can hit each other. Hey, what's up, Adam? How you doing? Thank you for everyone for being here. Hi to everyone who said hi. So that's a power. Now, what's a principality, right? We're going back now to Persia and Gabriel battling with the principality of Persia. Gabriel had to call a stronger angel to help him. And I'm gonna explain how all that works. So, a principality is a more organized, more dense version of a power. If you've heard of tulpas, if you've heard of the true story of the Vedic stories of the devas, the Vedic gods, their deities, and if you ask Buddhists, for instance, like, what are all these gods you got? And they say we created them and put them into the sky so that we could keep the world in harmony. So this is a spiritual technology. And it's very real. It's very much real. Obviously, we live in this modern, materialistic, whatever, But it doesn't make it any less real. It just makes us less aware of the fact that it's real. So, check out Celestine Prophecies, the book. Check out the stories from Terence McKenna. And I'm sure there's actually good research on these shared hallucinations. All right. So, a power is, a power is like you write something on this piece of paper, say, I want my friend to feel a burst of happiness. Let's say you have a friend who's kind of feeling sad. I want my friend to feel a burst of happiness, and then you sit there for a while. Maybe you draw a heart as the sigil, and then you put like their initials inside the heart, and you breathe, and you put intention into them. Just all of a sudden, boom, right? So it may or may not work depending on the fact that you believe it or not, but that's a power, and that's sending a power. And so when it's not a war of flesh and blood, but of powers, principalities, and wickedness in high places, the war is between the people who can send good powers and send defensive powers against offense, and those who send negative powers. Principalities are organized like organized collectives. And so the Principality of Persia represented the hopes, dreams, desires, culture, language of the Persian people. And it literally pretty much lives on the same borders as Persia exists in the physical reality. That principality lives there. And so Gabriel is also a principality. I know it might break a lot of Christians' hearts, but Gabriel is also a principality. It's a constructed thought form. And so these two constructed thought forms, the Principality of Persia was stronger than Gabriel because more people believed in the Principality of Persia than they did Gabriel at the time. Okay? There was a war happening. The Catholic Church, the temple religion. Look, guys, they all know this. You want to know why Israel is so important? Because it sits on what they believe to be the center of the spiritual world, where this creative energy rains down from heaven. Right, you guessed it, at Al-Aqsa. This is the thing they believe, by the way. This is the thing many secret societies believe. Jerusalem was built in the invisible world first. Solomon's temple was not built with hammer and chisel. These are all secret phrases they use to explain to you that they believe that the light of heaven pours down upon Israel, upon that area, specifically where the Al-Aqsa Mosque is now and where Solomon's temple used to be. And that's why it was built where it was built. With that creative energy, they create tulpas. So what they do is they channel that energy into their different comic book characters and create gods. And then they have the people worship those gods. And the more people that worship the god, the more powerful the god becomes. And if they have sort of like, let's say they have like the divine statue of their God and they have it in this particular temple and it's the first that was built and it has a very special characteristic that none of the other statues have, it's almost like they have their control node for that spiritual energy at that temple. Okay, this is all magic, and these are all things that all of you, every single one of you, I know it, knew as kids. You'd have a rock and you'd give it a special quality, and you knew that was the rock that bounded all the power of all the other rocks you had. You did all this stuff when you were a kid naturally, because you're naturally a magician. And so what happened is they go professional. And so the Catholic Church, the temple religion, I won't say too many of the words, because even just saying the words, they'll say it, they'll take me down my video. So, but you guys know what I'm getting at. So when we talk about the God of Israel, and you have the Star of David. The Star of David is not David's star. First off, it's as above, so below. So they're capturing that power. And also, it's bound to many aspects of sigil magic. And you'll notice that the 6-pointed star is what Israel has, and the 5-pointed star is what America has. Israel's the center of spiritual power in the world right now. America comes afterwards, one step down, 5-pointed star. These aren't things, this isn't by accident, okay? Now, what is the 5-pointed star? Used in pentagrams. What does Iran call us? The great shaitan, the great demon conjurer. The pentagram is the central sigil for conjuring demons. Everything I've told you is true. So, the most important thing you have to understand about this is that you all, yeah, I know, but you know what? It's like, I'm so sick and tired of censoring myself. I'm not going to go really hard, but when I have to use like the name of the country, it's like, man, if they're going to take me down for that, what the hell can I do, right? I don't want to keep on saying, that one country in the Middle East, you know what I mean? So I'll take my chances a few times. I think I should be okay. All right, so the most important thing you have to understand. So you have powers, and now I just explained principalities. What is wickedness in high places? Well, to whatever order of magnitude a principality is more organized and more powerful than a power, to that order of magnitude is the wickedness in high places. The Cherokee Nation has 7 stars. You know what? It's interesting and almost ironic, right? Because the Cherokee Nation is a member of the true Hebrew Israelites. And their name and their identity was stolen from them. So I'm glad that their star is 7. They probably do know. They probably are fully aware of that, because they're the true masters of magic, the indigenous people, who are the true Hebrew Israelites. And if you want a little bit more hint to that, just look at Jeremiah chapter 5. Look at that. See, but this is how they play their game with the stars. They know what they're doing. It's not just a flag. It's magic. Magic in action. So a wickedness in high places is like an even higher order magnitude. And so what I think the wickedness in high places is ultimately is the collective fears, hatreds, angers of all human beings over time, which has constructed an accidental supertopa. Okay? Now, along with wickedness in high places, there's also righteousness in high places. It doesn't refer to that in Ephesians because you're already by reading the Bible, you're already kind of with the intent of sitting with the righteousness in high places, which is God. And so it's telling you about your enemy. So it's saying, that's why it doesn't say wickedness and righteousness, because you're sitting with the righteousness in high places when you're reading and learning about this, and they're teaching you about the enemy. So powers, principalities, and wickedness in high places. So the God of anybody, so like the God of Israel doesn't have a God in the traditional way that we might think about a God. Christians have a God that Israel gave them. You understand? And it wasn't just I shouldn't say Israel. Israel's a part of it, but actually Israel's the smallest part of it. Because the Vatican, the temple religion that existed 2,000 years ago or more, these organizations were what really gave Christians a fake God. And they took all the pagan traditions and they took little pieces here, and they took some Greek philosophy, and then they took the old law, and then they got all of the prophets and all the apostles that were around whoever Jesus Christ actually was, and they got them to put together this book. And they prepackaged, and then they fought like hell, and they killed people, and they arrested people, and they silenced people so that they wouldn't tell you that Jesus Christ, whoever he was a man who became like God, not a God who became man. And then they made that into a God and gave it to you. And when you worship that God, by proxy, you worship the synagogue of Satan. Okay? Who killed him and then rewrote his story. So now when we talk about Christ, it's like I can't tell you whether or not a guy that we refer to as Jesus Christ who had a different name, surely. Jesus is a description, Christ is a title. It can't be a first and last name. It's Greek. Jesus is a word in Greek. It's an explanation of like an idea or a characteristic. So that wasn't his name when he wasn't Greek. So this is the most important thing. And this is the thing that I often have all the really weird digital and electronic malfunctions over. In Exodus 3:14, I'm going to tell you what it actually says because there's like three layers of mistranslation, probably intentionally. So when Moses talks to God, and he says, God's like, I need you to lead the Hebrew Israelites. And Moses is like, on whose authority? What do I say to these people that you are? Like, you're giving me the credibility, but they don't know you. Like, I know you. Like, I want them to respect me. What do I need to say to them about you so they'll get that I have authority now? And so God says, what you see it says now is like, some things say it's Yahweh. Others say YHVH. Both of those aren't, one's completely untrue, the other one's misleading. Yahweh, the full 6-letter word, is untrue. It's a lie. That's not who sent Moses. YHVH is misleading. Because what does YHVH become? First, people know it as the Tetragrammaton. Unfortunately, so many people think YHVH and Yahweh are the same thing. Thank you, everyone, for coming, by the way. Thank you. Thank you for taking some time with me. So that's one thing. Yahweh, the 6-letter word, and YHVH are not the same thing. There are so many people right now trying to tell you they're the same thing, or just using them both interchangeably in a haphazardly way. YHVH is not Yahweh. Yahweh is the amalgamation of a dishonest version of YHVH, storm gods like Baal, B-A-A-L, and Marduk, and they just grab a bunch of stuff and put it together. That was like, the paganization of Christianity, that same kind of thing. They grab a little characteristic from this god and this faun and this fairy and da. No disrespect to paganism either, because paganism actually knew what they were talking about. Because paganism wasn't LARPing inside of their own religion or spirituality. They understood the function of spirituality. Just like the Greeks understood the function of creating a daemon from star energy and pulling it into statues. They understood that ultimately this is a sort of dream realm where mind manifests, okay? So, before YHVH, it was I am that I am. So that's kind of the rough translation of what YHVH means. I am that I am. Well, what does that mean? What does I am that I am mean? What does I am that I am mean? The Tetragrammaton is just the 4-letter word. It's not the meaning of YHVH. YHVH does not mean breath, not even close. Ruach means breath. That's another misconception they put into it. That's another nonsense thing going around the internet. All I ask you to do, for the people that have heard that YHVH means breath, one, There's no Y, there's no H, there's no V, there's no H in the actual breath. 2, look it up. If you can find any credible source of information that says YHVH means breath, you will shock the hell out of me. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. People are making that up to continue to dilute the actual meaning and understanding of what YHVH is. And so I am that I am. What is, if you could try to explain that to somebody, what would I am that I am mean? It's tricky. So what people are referring to when they talk about spirit and breath is the word ruach. In the beginning, ruach spoke the word, and the word became flesh. Breath and wind and storm god, that just happens to be a coincidence. They're not connected. The pulling in of Baal was something that was completely peripheral that they did afterwards, after the construction of the language. So that's just a coincidence. So, I am that I am. It's really hard, right? Because that doesn't seem to make sense. Until you think of it, I'm going to say it now in a different way. And then tell me if you can discern the meaning. I am that I am. It's not so much an affirmation, it's an explanation. So now I'm going to tell you what he really said. Because what he really said before I am that I am, because that's also a mistranslation. I will become what the Hebrew people need me to become. I am that I am means I am that whatever I am in that moment, and I can become anything. Is what I am that I am means. I am whatever I am. I am whatever it can become. Yes, it's just like abracadabra, except they took the abracadabra part out. You understand? So when God says I am that I am, it's not complete. You can't define it. You can't explain it because it doesn't really exactly mean something. Why? Because there's no actionable in that central point in the sentence that would explain I am, something happens to me, and then I am. There's that little part's out. But when we go back to the original translation, it's I am whatever you need me to I am, is what the actual meaning is. Whether or not we're in the cymatic breath of God is inconsequential to the specific thing I'm talking about. If we're in the cymatic breath of God, it doesn't mean that Yahweh has to mean breath. Those two things can coexist perpendicular to each other conceptually and still both exist. Okay, so what God was telling Moses was, I am a thought form that you guys create and morph and change. This is a dream realm where whatever you, as long as you believe you can do it, whatever you imagine, I will turn into. This is the ultimate God telling Moses the nature of the game, that he is in an energetic sandbox of creation. And because he's a conscious being, he can make manifest the power of God through thought and prayer and belief. Okay? So that's what that YHVH really means. So all the religions, all these corrupt religions and all this, they know that. Yes, the genie in the bottle. Now, what is this evil force or the devil or... I've told you what the devil and Lucifer and Satan mean, but we'll talk about the evil one, the father of lies. All these rogue gods and demons, what are they? If the potentiality of creative force, the YHVH, telling you can create whatever you want, is the genie in the bottle, and then when you will God to become what you need God to become for you and your people, that's the genie, then what is the evil one? A genie freed who has convinced you to worship him because he's greater than you. That's the devil. The devil is a rogue spirit created by us that takes on its own consciousness and agency and then starts convincing us to worship it and then holds power over us. The original God told Moses, whatever I am is a servant to you. And then the Yahweh God that people worship by the billions today said the exact opposite to the people. No, you worship me. And that's why I said, about 6 months ago, we killed Yahweh. What I meant by that was we reached a critical mass of people who understood what I'm telling you right now, and they knew to stop worshiping it. When you stop worshiping it, it dies. You see, these spirits live off the same thing that created them: emotion, attention, belief. The same thing that created them is also their food. That's why we talk about like the energy vampires and the demons that feed on your loosh. The reason they feed on your loosh is because that's how they were created. It's their very nature to consume more. You understand? Yeah, we made them with our energy. And then it was like the genie in Aladdin when he loses his shackles, except he wasn't a good genie and he went rogue. Some of the genies are good, some of the genies are neutral, but we made all of them. And then which one do you choose? You choose what God told Moses. I will become whatever you need me to become. You don't pick any God with any name, with any character, with any attachment to a person, place, thing, nation, culture. You understand that in any moment you can make manifest energy, consciousness into form. And you never let that thing trick you into worshiping it. You created it. You're its creator. Right? So we should never follow any God. How did the natives of America worship God? They don't worship God. They revere Great Spirit with deep gratitude. That's not worshiping or following God. They're revering the very nature and act of creation and being grateful that they're a part of it. And then they live in harmony with it and they work with those energies. That's how we need to be approaching spirituality. Right? So, by the way, thank you to everyone who's joined, who shared it, who's throwing all those likes on here. You guys are the bomb. Decent amount of folks in here today. That's cool. Yeah, so look, this is the ultimate secret of all the secret societies, by the way. I just told you. When I say the ultimate, it is the ultimate. They do not know anything more than what I just told you. That's the master secret. I'm no joke, guys. That is the master secret. Is that this is a world made of something like mind, and your mind can create anything out of the creative potential that's in the aether. There are no gods to worship. We are all gods individually and, like little g, and collectively along with all of the things that are God. And that the reason, like the Masons, once you get to a certain degree, I can tell you this because I found it on the internet, so I'm not releasing any things that, like they didn't give this to me. I found it later on. They do this technique where they have you sit in front of the mirror with one candle, right? They also have you sit with a skull because it's about contemplating mortality. But the reason they have you do that, and when you look in the mirror, your face will change, it'll disappear, your face will start doing things you're not doing. It's not scrying. All right, so real quick, we've got 160 people here. Everyone do me a favor, please spread the word on this. This is not scrying. In order to scry, you need to be trying to contact a spirit and make a request. All you're doing with this is looking in the mirror and chilling and seeing how the mirror changes. Two completely different things. I am not telling you to scry. I never have, and I never will. Because I just got done telling you, you're not supposed to be... All these rogue gods and spirits, these are created things by us. We need to take our power back and realize we're their creators. And we can make them disappear anytime we want. And make new ones. And give them their freedom if they're good spirits that we created. Or dissolve them back into universal energy, neutral energy. I will never tell you to scry. And that's not what I just told you. No, you're scrying, you're communicating with spirits that already exist. And I didn't tell you to reach out to a tulpa in a mirror. All right, guys, focus. Take a deep breath for the people that aren't understanding and listen to what I'm saying. When you do that thing in the mirror, you simply trick your mind into trying to look at the image in a different way with different frequencies and wavelengths of the mind. Okay? And it'll change your image on the mirror in such a way you're sober and you're watching your face change into a tiger face, into a caveman face. You'll start to smile and wink when you're not doing it. It's not a spirit you're communicating with. You are watching as your brain reforms the matrix. Teaching you that this, whatever you thought was real and stable and physical, is not. It's interchangeable. Okay? That's what you're supposed to learn from that. It unseats your mind from being married to the materialist culture that you exist in so that you can realize that with your mind you can change reality. Yeah. So this is what the only thing that's you're communicating with is the very nature of reality itself. If you're communicating with anything, that'd be cool if I could just turn my brain into a book, or like project all the information onto pieces of paper and it just wrote itself. That would be wonderful. I wish that would make the writing process much easier. I'm not sure if I know who Bishop James Long is. When did the Egyptians go underground for a week? I bet they did that because they knew that, that pole shift was coming. Yeah, cheese and crackers, essentially what that is the light body. It's the resurrection body. It's the rainbow body of the Buddhist. Yeah, that's the ultimate thing you want to do with it. And I'm not recommending necessarily people create tulpas either, because this energy can just be used to pray for something that you need. But now that I gave you what you're praying to, and I gave you the truth of what it actually is, you don't have to worry about praying to some phony god or some demon or some angel. You're praying with the belief and knowing that we live in a world where the universe becomes what we need it to become. And so your prayers are going to be much powerful from here on out, if you've believed the things that I've told you. What's up, Undoctrinated? Undoctrinated. I always say that wrong. I had the I-N. So, yeah, but when you create your highest potential, that's called, that's what the Merkaba is. You've heard of the Merkaba, right? So Merkaba comes from Merkaba. It's Islamic mysticism. It predates traditional modern Islam. Yeah, well, it's interesting about that, turning around the light. In the Merkaba practice, you turn yourself around to witness your old self, and then like you imagine that you're staring in a mirror at your future self, and then you become that future self. Yeah, Merkaba. So that's the belief that you basically create the energetic version of your own body, so you turn yourself into a super tulpa. And that's what Christ did. Well, that's what the story of the resurrection of Christ is. And that's what they talk about with the rainbow bodies with the Buddhists and monks and the Himalayans, where they'll be meditating on a mountain, but like their disciples will see them walking through the streets. It's all the same thing, and it's no coincidence. Well, what is a chariot but a thing that takes you places? And what do they keep on chariots of the gods? Chariots of the gods, vehicles that could get you from earth to heaven. That's no coincidence. Yeah. So that's the big secret. Like seriously, like people say, what are the secret societies up to? That's what they're up to, folks. They're building things in the invisible world and then making them come to reality in the materialist. The ministry of magic is real. It's called the Catholic Church. Remember when they were like burning all those witches? Right? What were those witches doing? Maybe some of them were communicating with the devil, making bad spirits. But what they were doing was performing their own magic. And the Vatican thought they could have a copyright on magic and control the magic. So anyone that started using it would be an example to other people and say, see, we can do it ourselves. So they burnt them at the stake. Why did they burn them at the stake? It had nothing to do with like a ritual of No, they were trying to it was the most horrifying way to die. That's why they burnt them at the stake, because you could hear the screaming and you could smell the flesh burning. They tried to make it the scariest possible punishment. Why would they do that? Murderers, rapists, probably just got the guillotine. People practicing magic got the worst possible death that they could imagine. Think about that. It's because they didn't want anybody performing the old pagan rites. They didn't want people knowing that they had their own spiritual ability to create magic. Yeah, it wasn't because it was bad. It's because it was bad for business. Okay? They're the ministry of magic, controlled by Voldemort in our real life reality. In Saudi Arabia, if you get caught performing magic as a Saudi Arabian citizen, they kill you. They kill you. Yeah, so the ministry of magic is a real thing. Magic is a real thing. You can perform it, and I literally told you the master secret that all secret societies teach at the very end. Now, keep in mind, they're teaching you techniques to be able to do it all throughout. And so these secret societies show you how to do different types of magic and make a certain thing happen and see that it can happen, and remote viewing and lucid dreaming and astral projection. They teach you all that stuff too. But that's the master secret. So sorry, folks, I cannot recap or go over anything just because everyone that's been keeping up will be listening to the same stuff for 10, 20, 30 minutes, right? So we got to keep going, but if I can download this, I'll post it later on, because I do think this is a pretty important live that we've done here. Wait, yeah, so someone asked me, do I perform magic? I perform a couple kinds. So essentially when I get up, I have a constant, call it spell going at all times that protects me from all the BS that gets sent my way. It's a very complex piece of magic that took me a long time to create, and I cannot tell you it because that's like, you have to understand that some spells are like 0-hour protocols. Like once somebody figures out how the spell works, someone can make a more powerful counter spell because they know how your code works. You understand? So there's certain, like I can't really talk about that particular one because it's classified. It's high technology, and the fact that I'm able to keep certain principles of the belief and understanding and faith and power secret and protected is how it's pretty powerful, to the point that even if they did know it, it'd be very hard for them to create a counter to it. But just the same, keep these, especially your defensive protective spells, keep them to yourself. Unless they're just kind of like basic, simple ones that you want other people to be able to use. But any of your like high power stuff that's supposed to like give you like the ultimate protection, keep that to yourselves. Don't share that with anybody. Then if someone's doing something, if I think someone's doing something filthy to me, throwing some dirt at me, what I'll do is I'll send out a prayer that says, hey, look, if this isn't an accident and they're trying to take a shot at me, send it back to them 1,000-fold. Make them feel it. But only if they're willfully or intentionally trying to cause me distress or pain or injury. Yeah, so I have a return to sender one I'll do in those specific situations. And then I'm constantly doing one that's like teaching myself that I don't get sick, that I don't need that much food to exist, that I can pull energy from the sun, that I get energy from my air, that I get energy from my water, that my body is always rebuilding and healing. These types of things are what I usually, those are like my bread and butters. And then, you know, prosperity, you know, if every now and then, I'll try to just do a prosperity one. Just to make sure I can get by in life and all that. I don't practice any particular type of magic anymore, because remember I was telling you, I will become what you need me to become. That's the master key. You don't need any particular system. And you have to remember that any system you're using is going to have energetic baggage on it. You understand what I'm saying? So I don't risk using any magical system. I create all my own. I create all my own words. I let my body like sort of speak the words into existence. I try not to use English like at all if I don't have to. Yeah, and I don't use any, I only use one symbol that is mine. I don't use like any magical symbol that was made by anybody else. Because then I'm sort of linking myself to their energy. You know what I mean? No, we used to have a team of magicians, and then, man, you wouldn't believe. You wouldn't believe what happened to us. We had something really special going on, though, and look, I'll tell you one thing that happened. So this is right when we started off, and we weren't even working as a tight-knit group yet. But one day we said we were doing an End the Fed thing, and I showed a bank as an emoji on a video here and a fire on it. And you said, look, destroy the buildings. No one inside, no one gets hurt, but destroy the buildings. Like less than a week later, the Federal Reserve building in Denver was on fire. So, you know, I mean, and no one got hurt, right? But the building caught on fire. And so then we were like, okay, wow, but let's focus on positive things too, right? And so when we created a Discord, and we had a little like inner group, and that's when you might have heard of the Care Bear Stare, Rainbow Warriors, and you see these things collected together. We created that movement of like combining the idea of the Care Bear Stare and the Rainbow Warriors of Native tradition and the new song in the Bible prophecy. We're like, it's all the same thing. It's manifesting a new song, a new frequency from the body and creating a better reality by willing it with love into existence. And then the Discord got hacked. We had a bunch of crazy people that came in there that were like, you know, black magicians that actually started casting weird spells on people. People literally started going crazy. Like a couple people like half lost their minds. They were fine one day and the next day weren't. Very like evil, sick, like it makes me feel like disgusted when I think about it. It was a very weird infiltration. And it just ripped the whole thing apart. It was a digital thing. It was happening in my own life. It was happening on the Discord. And yeah, so that was the circle that we had, like a little magician circle. But the magician circle was infiltrated from the beginning, man. They were keeping an eye on us since day one. And who they are, I don't fucking know exactly. Yeah, so now I just kind of do my own thing. Here's what happens on one level. You have actual people that are monitoring this stuff digitally, whoever they are. I won't give myself so much credit to say it was the feds, but it could have been, right? You have rival TikTok accounts that send their people into your, or they just go in themselves and they spy on you and they steal your ideas and they try to fuck your shit up. Then there's people who are spiritually motivated. Like it's like a demon instructed them to do it. They are acting completely possessed. And you have all those forces working. Yeah, I think I get on a few radars. Probably true. Like I said, I don't want to give myself so much credit. It's like, oh yeah, they're after me, like I'm special or something. It's like, am I really? Am I really? Right? Like I don't want to think that highly of myself because it just feels inherently arrogant. No, Sean, doing what I just said would be paranoid. What I just told you actually happened. You can't be paranoid about something that actually happened. I'm talking to you about the thing that would be paranoia if I actually thought the feds were after me. There are clearly things that purposely disrupt. I mean, I guess you'd have to have been here. But I mean, I did a live a couple years back. Somebody came on, was saying all this weird, gross, disgusting stuff. I blocked the guy. He's back 5 minutes later after I blocked him off the channel. Then he teases me by saying, oh, you think you can block me? Then I try to block him again and it won't let me. And he's toying with me saying, yeah, you're trying to block me now and you can't. You know, so who would be able to do that? That happened. I mean, people were there for that live. Who the hell is capable as a regular user of doing that? Nobody. Yeah, they would, and if they were hackers, they're hacking into one of the most powerful and largest social media companies to ever exist already, even though it's so young. So yeah, how would they be able to do that without TikTok stopping them? Because they were there for a while, right? So like weird things like that would happen. That actually happened, and there was witnesses to it, right? So like clearly something's happening disruptive. Another time I'm in my DMs and I'm messaging someone, and we're talking about Bill Gates, and I said something with prayer, like using light magic. Everyone started kind of like, you know, fucking vibing on him, and he was out of there eventually. I believe that's how we usually take care of them, and they're gone. Like if you start vibing the light on them, man, like after a while, like it overwhelms them, and they're out of there. Yeah, we have more power. There's several reasons we have more power, and this is one of those things. It's like we have a super weapon that they can't have. But it's not what I've never seen anybody say it or talk about it. We have a force for good that they could never even hope to have operating in the darkness. Because of the consequences of operating in the darkness, they forfeit their ability to tap into this power. And people say good wins in the end, light wins in the end. I'm always really harsh and critical about that because I want them to articulate why. Because if you don't know why and you just say light wins, you have no idea what you're talking about. But if you say light can win and light has a superpower, and then you explain what the superpower is, then you're actually in power, and then light can actually win. Light can't win unless we do something about it. Light ain't gonna win just because light wins. Like, that's goofy. That's fairy tale fantasy Disneyland bullshit. You have to know why light will win in a practical way. Just like evil understands why it's winning, that why it wins right now, the situation we're dealing with, why they have an advantage. They know why they have an advantage, and they use that advantage against good people, and then they tell you things like Christ is going to come and save you and all this other nonsense. So you keep calm and carry on, and you never use the magic, the light magic, to do something. Right? So, Sean, it's a good question, and I've talked about it before, and I've hinted at it before. But saying it out loud and saying specifically what it is, will, if they're watching what I'm saying, or they're watching what anybody else says after I've said it to them, that's how they will morph the way they attack people's minds to defeat that idea. They can't beat the truth of it, but they can beat it out of people's minds. And if I just say it specifically outright, instead of getting people to develop it in themselves, the narrative and the way that they push their MK Ultra bullshit will change to make people feel hopeless about that specifically. What I notice anytime I release a piece of wisdom is you'll see, and if I see if it catches waves, I'll see the counterattack to it in real time. So it's like I'm playing a very interesting game of chess spiritually, as many of us are. To help people to wake up, because that wisdom is already inside of themselves. And the battlefield of the mind externally is something they have 99% of the control of. The battlefield of the mind internally is what they're trying to get into. They don't have control over. And if I'm able to subtly communicate really important matters of the mind and heart and give you pieces, you will put them together through a sort of integration process that will occur subconsciously. And it will wake up inside of you. If I were to just say it, the game would change again. And then I have to change. How I've noticed over these last years, I've had to become more and more and more creative and subtle with telling people the truth. You want to go back to 3 years ago in my videos? Watch some of those things and watch how things have changed. I haven't said anything differently, or I haven't changed like what I've talked about. I've changed how I've talked about it. You know what I mean? But I'll give you a big hint. Yeah, I mean, it's weird, right? Maybe it's a coincidence. You know? But think about it this way. I'm going to give you a big hint. And I want you to not tell your friends. Tell a couple of your friends if you figure it out. Don't make a big deal about it, though. Spread it quietly and let it integrate. Imagine your great-grandchildren. What do they want? If you could imagine what your great-grandchildren would want you to leave them, what would they want? A happy world, a free world, a good world, a world where they can pursue their passions, freedom, right? Is that everyone's great-grandchildren? that want that? Yeah, all the good stuff, right? Is that something that everyone's great grandchildren want? No, no. Well, think about it. Everyone's great. You don't. We don't. They're not born yet. So imagine they're just neutral human beings. Yeah, but those people aren't born yet. A neutral human being before they're indoctrinated, before they're trained to be like their parents, if their parents are assholes. Yes. So that would mean that all of posterity wants you to succeed. That means the entire force of humanity from here well into the future wants you to rediscover the kingdom of heaven. We're only talking about the great-grandchildren. We're not talking about the people living today. We're talking about the idea of posterity and the true desires of the natural human being as Abraham Maslow would define them, a neutral or positive being. Without any programming, without any maladaptive behaviors, without any trauma. Exactly. That's 1/3 of the force and power and momentum that is rooting for you. Hey, I'm having to do a verification to continue thing. It's just freezing up on me and not letting me, give me a second. It just, no internet connection. Okay. Okay, we're good now. It just told me no internet connection. I'm like, no, internet connection's fine. All right, cool. So that's 1/3 of the great advantage. Inherently, all human beings want liberation. We all want the same things. You understand what I mean? The deep human desire to live in harmony with themselves, with the rest of human beings and the earth, is a 1,000-foot tsunami that is continually moving toward the beach, the shore, threatening their castles of sand, which they keep trying to build higher to get a little taller than that tsunami. They keep on pulling the shore farther inland. Do you understand? That force is uncontestable, but we can be made to forget that it is ours. And that's what they're riding on, that they can make us forget. They can make us forget what it was like to fall in love the first time. They can make us forget when we were children, we had a deep passion to do whatever, to have whatever real occupation we want, whatever real service we want to the world. They can make us forget That feeling that we got the first time, maybe we went to the woods and it felt like there was some consciousness with us, and then we kind of spent a little time with it. We literally felt the electric, alive nature of all things that are. It can make us forget those things, and to weaken us and to put control over us. But as soon as we remember all those things and more, we can't be controlled because we know that thing is so much more important. And if we're willing to give up everything, risk everything to make sure we have it, and to make sure our children have it, and their children have it, and their children have it, we would liquidate them, right? So just remember that. You know, I'm not sure what you mean, but by can I provide you with proof? Anyways, yeah. So just remember, God will become whatever you need God to become. That's what God told Moses. I will become whatever you need me to become. Hey, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jug. Exodus 3:14. When it says YHVH, the original translation is actually I will become what the Hebrew people need me to become. That's God telling us that it's a dream realm and we can consciously create. And that's what the observer effect is in quantum mechanics. You'd think that in quantum physics, when they discovered the observer effect, they would have like done a little more research into seeing if like an intentional observer effect could happen. You don't ever hear about that, do you? That's because they shut that shit down. They don't want you knowing that you can change reality with your mind. So at the observer effect, boop, it just stops. Right? Kind of weird, isn't it? The observer effect is because something is watching the electrons. Because something is watching the electrons or whatever subatomic particle, it changes its path and position because it's being observed. So what if it was being observed with an intent to put it in a particular place? Why don't we see any research or studies on that? Well, they're not going to be public studies. I'm sure they do know what would happen if you did that. That's the truth, folks. We live in an illusion, albeit a persistent one. We're in a shared dream. And we can make things happen, especially collectively. So, yeah. Any doorknob questions? Yeah, user 75608. I can't pull a rabbit out of a hat right now. These things take time until you're able to fully commit and become someone who can maybe produce something right in front of you. But I've healed people. I've literally seen the future as it was going to happen before it happened. You don't have to believe me. I think a lot of people here have experienced incredible synchronicities and providences and miracles in their own life when they really truly believed and prayed. And amazing things happen. If you want to know how this stuff works, I have plenty of videos that talk about how the subconscious mind is a supercomputer and how it can actually just take you to the thing that you need because it has all the information already available to get you to the place you need to get. No, I can't shoot fireballs out of my hands yet. I'm working on it. But my ability to not produce a miracle right here in front of you doesn't mean that I can't produce a miracle over time, for instance, right? These things do take time, especially at first when we're learning. But I mean, I'm not trying to Get you to be like, oh my God, but Cosmic Man can perform miracles. I'm not looking for stardom. I'm telling you what I've experienced in my own life, what I believe to be true, so that other people will empower themselves, right? So this isn't a contest or me showing off to show you my magic powers. This is me telling you to believe in yourself and give it a shot. You want the proof? Figure it out. Try it. That's your proof, friend. And if you're already convinced that you don't want to believe, then that's fine. I'm not here to convince anybody. That's not the goal here. I don't care if I was, oh, you hear Cosmic Man? No, I'm telling you, try it out. See what happens. And like I said, I can't pull a rabbit out of a hat right now. One, that's not how it works. And two, yeah, they take a little bit of time. And there's a lot of them that I can't visually show you. Let's say, for instance, I brought somebody here that had like a really bad back problem, and I laid hands on them, and I healed them, and they're like, oh my God, you healed me. What could you say? Oh, that person's faking it. So most of the miracles that I could perform in front of you, there would be no way for me to prove that it actually happened. I mean, they've got CG videos of UFOs on TikTok that to the untrained eye look completely realistic, right? So it's like almost, if not everything that I could possibly do on this screen, you could easily say that the person involved is playing along with you. You're using CG. So even if I was able to do it on the screen, it wouldn't matter much. That's why I'm telling you to give it a shot so it can happen in your life and you can verify it with your own mind. Try it. You've heard at least some of the stuff that I said. Give it a shot. See if something amazing happens. But you got to believe that it can happen. Faith the size of a mustard seed. You don't have to believe that it's definitely going to happen. Keep an open mind that it could happen, that reality isn't as static and stuck as you thought it was, right? Sort of detach yourself a little from the phone and from the culture and from your pre-existing beliefs, and just consider the possibility that this is a giant energetic sandbox. Just give it a shot. You know what I mean? Ooh, dimensional, spiritual, or temporal. I think some of it is powers and principalities, and some of it is physical government technology. And then there's a potentiality that they're dimensional or meta intelligences, or for instance, ball lightning. So if you stand next to an electric pole or like a large power transformer, you'll start hallucinating dead relatives, ghosts, aliens, whatever your mind produces, right? Lots of people, when they're having alien abduction experiences or whatever, recall a blue light. Some people recall balls of blue light. Some people, while witnessing someone else who feels like they're being abducted or looking at an alien, only see a ball of blue light. So I theorize that some of these things are actually natural phenomenon, that electromagnetic radiation that triggers a response for our pineal gland to produce DMT in the waking state. It's another reason for some of the paranormals. Which could not even be a personal hallucination. It could actually be a shift in being able to see different spectrums of reality. So I think it's like there's a meta explanation there. That I think that some people are taking advantage of supernatural folklore and creating these things. I mean, look. We were at war in like Thailand or something, and our military officers and soldiers were instructed to drain the blood from the enemy soldiers after they killed them, hang them from trees and put 2 puncture marks in their neck, and tell all the locals that the vampires were eating bad people. Our military actually did that. That's terrorism, by the way. And they played on the local cultural folklore to terrorize the people with a faked supernatural event. Interesting. By the way, what does that sound like? It sounds like the cattle mutilations in America. All the cows were drained completely of their blood, not a trace of blood on the animal, on the ground. Who would be capable of doing that in the middle of a night? Not many people. Who would be able to get a helicopter pilot, a helicopter, a great surgeon, and somebody who knows how to drain the blood out of something without leaving a single drop? Not many organizations that are well funded enough to be able to do that and do it hundreds of times in the middle of the night with nobody ever catching them. Yeah, just like a rogue doctor. No, but also another thing you have to know is that these cows, where they were picked up and dropped off, no footprints ever. Ever. Not a single footprint. Like real fucking, like the anti-Batman. Like a really rich doctor who just does weird shit with cows. It's hilarious. So I'm not saying it's definitely the government, but it's the most likely answer is our own government. Oh, by the way, one of the cows were dropped at the entrance of NORAD. Without NORAD realizing that something with the ability to pick up a cow, make it go airborne, bring it somewhere else, and then drop it on the doorstep of NORAD, right? North American, they basically have the best observation platforms at NORAD. Like, is it Northeastern? Someone knows what it is. I know they do. But anyways, it's basically a giant surveillance apparatus for national defense. And they didn't know a fucking cow got dropped at their, you know what I mean? They got up to it the next day. North American Aerospace Defense. If North American Aerospace Defense can miss whoever this is dropping a bloodless cow with its sex organs taken out and put on top of its body and right in front of its entrance, we're either dealing with the government who did it or something that's slightly more advanced than our government. So, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so it's like part of it's governments or just really powerful organizations, maybe some NGOs. Maybe there's lots of rumors that there's a breakaway civilization, so maybe they're doing it. But yeah, I think the least likely is aliens. Actually. That's the ironic part of all of this, is because that's the largest conversation. Aliens from Pleiades or whatever. I think it's, it was really, and I think they did it because the cows like were the closest thing to home for people. And it's the scariest they could get without actually doing it to people. And because if they were doing it to people like that, I mean, look, when it was happening in Colorado, it was the largest movement of law enforcement or mobilization of law enforcement in the history of Colorado. So just imagine if those were people that was happening to, right? So whatever was doing this knew where the line was, probably to create enough pressure, but not too much that it would blow back and that they might get caught, because, you know, the full force of like the American military and all of law enforcement would clearly be on this. I say all that to say that this is obviously clearly a physical phenomenon too, and it has all of the indications of terrorism that America as a country has itself committed. It happened all across the Midwest. It was 1974 to 76 or something like that. Just look at the if you're interested in this, look at cow mutilations, 1970s Midwest. Hey, what's up, John? How you doing, man? Like that would be more likely that extraterrestrials that come from extraterrestrial. I call that super terrestrial. like super terrestrials. I'm more inclined to believe that there's breakaway civilizations, even just of human beings. And I think there's evidence for that with that starts in 1850 to 75 with the airships. And from there you see a strange tech curve explosion and gap between what we have as science and then what we are observing these craft. It all starts with the airships. Before that, there's weird shit that happens and paranormal stuff. But as far as actual real tech, in like the mid to late 1800s, these strange airships were being produced just a few years before we were creating airships. A little more advanced than the ones that came out for us. And then you just saw this exponential curve of these advanced UFOs alongside a curve of ours which moved a little slower. Right? So, yeah, there's pretty good evidence that there is a breakaway culture operating alongside ours as well. And so I think some of it you can probably, but I kind of pin that with the government and special aircraft, because the government and special aircraft are probably very aware, if not responsible in some part, for a breakaway civilization, right? I mean, they had underwater, like Dr. Evil style bases, like under the western shelf of the West Coast, like in the 1950s. Like the shit you saw in James Bond, the submarines and the underwater bases, they had that shit in the 1950s. Those are real bases. So how far ahead? Yeah, Jeffrey Epstein's still alive, clearly, right? It's not Jeffrey Epstein. What's the meme? Epstein didn't kill himself, or Epstein killed himself. It's Epstein didn't die. No one killed Epstein. You know, I don't think the people that employed him have like loyalty exactly, but I think that after everything Epstein did for them, they could easily fake his death for him. Like that'd be an easy one for him. It's like, yeah, you know, you were able to blackmail 500 of the most important, powerful people in America. I think we can fake your death for you and buy you a small island, a new island. Right? So. Yeah, and there was other weird shit happening around the same time as Roswell. I mean, look at Jack Parsons, the relationship between Jack Parsons, L. Ron Hubbard, and Aleister Crowley. What a motley crew. Look up their correspondences with each other and what Aleister Crowley taught them and what they did in the desert with rockets and black magic spells. All true story. Yes, Jack Parsons of JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratories, like the founder basically. Aleister Crowley, who's considered the wickedest man alive, right? And L. Ron Hubbard, the creator of Scientology, were buddies. And Aleister Crowley taught them a ritual so powerful that Aleister Crowley himself, after giving them the ritual, said, you shouldn't do this. You can't handle it. Like, the words he used were even funnier because, like, he was, like, kind of friends with them. Yeah, he was friends with them. And he kind of, like, goofed on them. He's like, you guys are too stupid to use this. This is essentially what he said to these guys. It's like, you guys are too stupid to use this. It was actually Parsons that opened it. And then Parsons died in an explosion accident working on the rockets. And so Jack Parsons opened it, and then he died before he could close it, allegedly. I wouldn't be surprised if Katy Perry did that. They turned Katy Perry out. Holy shit. What a come down story that one is. Like when you say, do I believe in Christianity? It's like, you have to be way more specific. Like, I believe Christianity exists. I mean, there's people that believe in it. They have a book, they have churches, so it clearly exists. Again, you have to be more specific. I don't think anybody knows who Jesus said he was, because none of us were there, and they changed the story. So I can't think about what Jesus said he was, because I can't know what Jesus said he was. Yeah, his name was not Jesus. Jesus is a descriptor. It's a Greek. It's a translation of a Greek word, which is a descriptor. I forget what the word means, but it's not a name. Christ is a title, also not a name. Yeah, it was probably closer to Yahshua or Yeshua or Joshua, something like that. Not even J, because there was no J. We also have testimonies of people who said those testimonies were forcefully changed on threat of death and excommunication. So many of those people were under duress when they gave certain testimonies. But Jesus never said he came to die for our sins. That's clear in the ridiculous translations of English version of the story, but it's also so much more clear when you actually see what was actually written back then. There is nothing in the Bible whatsoever, anywhere, where Christ says anything about having to die for your sins. It's not there. It doesn't exist. That blows my mind. You can't even find it in the English Bible. Written in English. Blows my mind. It's not even in there, let alone when you actually look at what it actually meant when you go back to Greek and Aramaic and Hebrew, depending on what you're reading and who wrote it. It didn't say anything close to that. So do I believe what Jesus said he was? What do you mean, do I believe what the Vatican said he was? Because that's what you're reading. A lot of the New Testament has been changed, but there's still things that are just like objectively true. And that's where you have to use, that beautiful thing called discernment. It has to make sense. There's a lot of people say, oh, you'll pick and choose to the Bible. It's like, yeah, they fucking did it at the Council of Nicaea. Now I have to go in reverse. Right? Like people, there's a lot of people who will get on the Christ, dog on us Christ consciousness people. And except they were the ones that took out 90% of the writings that could have been considered canon. And then they took the 10% and they changed it 3 times. Yeah, dying for dying because of the sins maybe. But even that, when you look, John, if you go back and you look not at the English of that, look at the Greek or the Aramaic or the Hebrew, whatever that particular one's written in, I can promise you it does not say that Jesus is dying so that we can go to heaven because of our sins. Even saying something like dying for the sins of the people, it could mean that because people are so sinful, Jesus was brought to the cross and crucified because everyone lost their minds because he told them the truth. I'm not saying that's what he meant in that verse, but when you pull back to the old languages, none of them say that there was a black magic blood sacrifice ritual to make sure everyone in posterity would be forgiven for their sins without taking any accountability for their own life, because that would be completely crazy. But yeah, so even that verse where it says that, he doesn't say that he's dying to save us and everyone in the future from going to hell because we're inherently, like, there's no description there. It says dying, if that part where it says that could easily be understood as he's dying because the people are so sinful and so deep in the lie that when he tells the truth, he'll be killed for it, right? We could easily interpret it that way. But yeah, if we actually look back at what it actually said to begin with. Like, did you know there's actual verses from Matthew that were removed that actually tell you the right way to pray as referred to in the Gospel of Thomas? They were removing just specific verses from chapters that gave you the whole secret, which again, you can refer back to in Exodus 3:14. So yeah, like the more homework you do, the more you realize Christ, one, you think Christ, if Christ was going to die for our sins, he would explain how that works. Because it seems ridiculous on the face of it. It's like, wait, you're a great guy, you should probably be the emperor of Rome. And most of us are assholes. You're teaching us how to not be assholes. But then you, the best guy for the job of like leading humanity, is going to die, so we get to go to a place that could easily be imaginary because we can't do what you did and take accountability for our own actions. So you have to take accountability for our actions. None of this makes any sense. So you think that Christ would explain, like, spiritually, energetically, cosmically, how that works. Except if he ever did that, if that even happened, he'd have to explain that, oh yeah, I'm just using old black magic rituals from the book of the law. Because they were slaughtering sheep and cattle, and that wasn't enough to control you, so they slaughtered a human being. Or at least created a story about slaughtering a human being, because it's a much more powerful magical spell that binds you by killing a pure human being. Just the way they kill pure animals. It's blood sacrifice magic. That's what that whole thing is. And they just up the game by using a person. Whether it's just narratively they used a person and they've been telling it so long it's like they actually sacrificed a person, or they actually sacrificed Christ back then. And he wasn't just killed by Rome for being a political dissident. Remember, crucifixions happened to more than just Jesus. Crucifixions happened to anyone who did like high crimes. Again, like the burning at the cross, the crucifixion was the most gruesome way the Romans could imagine killing someone. So it terrified people out of not committing what Rome thought were the most heinous crimes. Like being too much of a dissident against the Empire of Rome, which had become tyrannical. Like that was probably the highest crime to Rome, is anyone who would try to question Rome and build any kind of following. The crucifixion wasn't magical, a magical ritual. Crucifixion happened to anyone. Rome was like, we got to make a fucking example of this guy so no one ever does anything like this again. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's in the Bible. They had two other people getting on the cross at the same time. You'd think if they were trying to convince us that it was a divine story, they wouldn't have, you know what I mean? They would have left the part out with the other two guys being crucified that day. But, you know, they can't tell a perfect lie. Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing. Burning witches at the cross, crucifying Christ on his cross. It's just meant as a deterrent. Oh, Life of Brian is incredible. I mean, I love all of Monty Python. You're very welcome, Adam. Thank you for being here and supporting it. Spreading the word, hopefully, right? Get more people. By the way, thank you everyone for the gifts. It's very kind of you. Yeah, but then remember, John, look at the Council of Nicaea, what was written before that, what was argued, what points were argued at these councils, what we're reading in English right now, what it actually meant. It's kind of like John 3:16. It says, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. Did you know that's not even close to what the original verse was? It's something like forces of the divine mother made manifest human beings or something like that. So it was actually talking about something like a feminine aspect of God. which was producing reality. So that's what John 3:16 actually says. And so it's esoteric. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. That means God so loved the idea of creating reality that he materialized it. Right? But they made God the Father instead of God the Mother. So that's John 3:16. And how many fucking... oh, okay, I see what you're saying, yeah. So it was metaphor for him because righteousness was the hill that he died on. Keeping it real was the hill that he died on. Yeah, so people are always like John 3:16, John 3:16, John 3:16. If they knew what John 3:16 really meant, well, they wouldn't have an argument anymore, right? So, look, and if you think about the things that I'm saying, it's just common sense. Take personal responsibility for the things that you do wrong. Take care of your own sin, friendo. What are you doing relying on somebody else to die for your sins? How so much of a selfish asshole do you have to be to allow somebody else to do that for you? You can take responsibility for your own shit. You make a mistake, you fix it. You go apologize to the person. You atone to your God. You know? And no offense to any, there might be some people in here that believe in the blood of Christ, but and I'm not going to try to change what you believe in and all that, but it doesn't make any sense. And there's nothing in the Bible that actually supports it. It's literally just been your preachers and pastors who were brainwashed by their preachers and pastors, who were brainwashed by their preachers and pastors all the way back to the Council of Nicaea, where they decided they would tell the story backwards. And that's what actually happened. And yeah, and as far as Revelations is concerned, the return of the Son of God is the return of the sun exploding. Not exactly exploding, but it gives off a little fart and fucks the world up. That's what the whole cataclysm, that's the sun going mini nova and blowing off the Earth's magnetic field and causing the whole thing to fucking lose its mind for X amount of days. And that's why there used to be a river where the Grand Canyon is, and many other things. Yeah, that's the Revelations and the Apocalypse has nothing to do with Jesus. The return of the Son of God is the return of the Son of God. Cleansing the whole damn planet. Yeah, John. And they'd be like, oh, this is true in the Bible. It's like, well, what's your reference? Well, this other part in the Bible. Wait, what the fuck? What are you talking about? Yeah, it's like, well, where'd you get that? Well, I can reference this other thing in the Bible. This says that this verse is true, and every other verse in the Bible is true, so the whole thing has to be true. And I'm like, holy shit. All right, so it's like reading Harry Potter and being like, wizards are real. It's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, look at this guy, Harry Potter. It's like, that's a fictional book. That's what you think is a fictional book. That's just propaganda. It's like, how do you know that Harry's a wizard? Well, if you go over here to chapter 2 of book 1, Hagrid tells him he's a wizard. And it's like, there's nothing you can do because the entire thing is being referenced in and of itself, right? Within its own book. But that's another thing it should clearly show. I'm not one of these, clearly I'm not an atheist. I think everyone knows here I'm not an atheist, not even close to an atheist. I think that's even more goofball. I think atheists believe the same thing indoctrinated monotheists believe. Right? They just believe in hating that God, right? So, no, it's just common sense. God is easy, man. God is love. God is standing up to tyranny. God is not lying and not cheating and not stealing and not killing. God is doing for others what you would do for yourself. God is treating your friend as a second self. That's what God is. God is being in harmony with reality. God is not overhunting the buffalo. Right? It's super simple. We all know what it is. We all feel it deeply. As long as we're not getting brainwashed by these ideologies or spending too much time with bad influences, we all know. We all know what it is. We all know what's right. We all know what's wrong. We all know what feels good. We all need vindication. We all need redemption. We all need safety and security, and we can all provide that for each other. This shit is simple, man. It's not in a color of your gown. It's not in a particular ritualistic walk or dance. It's in all of us. It's quite easy. You know, we don't need all this other nonsense. Yeah, it's super easy math. It's the easiest math. And we know as children what that math is. And then, you know, we get the fluoride and we get the school and we get the religion and, you know, it all disappears. It's very common sense. It's very common sense. Here's a fun little example for you. Like back in the day when villages caught like the village thief, what did they do? They tied him to a tree for a week. They didn't let him die. They tied him to a tree for a week and everyone like threw tomatoes at him and made fun of him and said, "You're an asshole." And then they untied him from the tree and they forgave him. And that guy probably never stole again. Public embarrassment. Holding them accountable. Everyone knows, everyone keeps a little closer eye on him, and he does whatever the fuck he can to redeem himself with his people, because if he gets kicked out of the village, he's going to die of starvation. So he knows he needs them, and he can't buy his way out of it. That's why they say money is the root of all evil. It's not literally the root of all evil, but it's what allows people to commit more evil because they can buy their way out of it, right? But when communities and villages and things like this worked correctly, as soon as someone did something wrong, the entire community was there to say, "No, that's fucked up. That's one of our rules. Oh, I don't care who you are. I don't care who your dad was. We're going to tie you to this tree for a week and throw tomatoes at you. And then you're going to try to earn our trust back." And this is how any groups of people should be. This is how we work things out for ourselves. We don't need big government. We don't need police officers armed with M16s. We don't need any of that shit. We just need each other, and we need to have our moral compasses about us, moral compasses that we find within ourselves. So, you know, thank you all for being here. Yeah, I mean, we could easily cut a lot of corners and get there a lot quicker if we literally just went back to following the teachings of many indigenous tribes around the world. Like, they've got it figured out. Crime rate, what are the crime rate? And indigenous people that are not connected to the internet, are not connected to the culture, the crime rate's like near zero. Rape, near zero. If not completely zero. Like, all these crimes, they don't happen. Makes you wonder. So, yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for all the kind comments. Love you guys too. Glad you're here. Glad you all stuck around. And you know, jump over to X when TikTok is gone. I'm starting to convert everyone to X just because I get in way less trouble on X. I'm a maniac over there, by the way. A lot of it's memeing, so prepare to be memed and prepare to be a little offended probably, but it's coming from the same place. It's the same heart. I'm far more dramatic and ridiculous because there's no rules over there. So, oh yeah, I'm just busting Ryan Garcia's chops over there. I don't know if he's talking back to me, but I'm busting his chops because he's doing like, there's a lot of people right now that keep on referring to what's happening over there in the Middle East with Palestine with the J word. And it's a terrible idea. It's not the right way to do it. You hold accountable the state and the representatives of the state that are making those military decisions. You punish them. And you don't make it about every single citizen that lives in that country. That's crazy. That's doing the same thing that Israel's doing to Palestine right now. And two wrongs don't make a right. And so him and a couple other people keep saying the J word, and I keep reminding them that that doesn't bring us anywhere fast. And I've met Jewish people that are wonderful people. Like, really cool. Like the Jewish people that I've met stand out in my mind. for how kind and generous they were. So that should say something that like we should not be using that word to refer to like a problem. Yeah, but you know, even like Zionism is not quite the ticket. What we need to say is the very specifically, Netanyahu, along with many people he's connected with, think they are superior human beings to other people. Now, if we want to call it Zionism, fine. But even like the priority of Zion or the whatever they're called, the Zion protocols, no one even knows if that shit is real. So it's like, okay, yeah, like the idea that any people should think they're better than anybody else is stupid, right? But Zionism doesn't get to because if we say Zionism, it's still a ghost. It's still a specter. We need to say Netanyahu, right? You know what I mean? Like I have something against using the J word because it includes anybody who's ethnically, religiously, or nationalistically Jewish. But, so that's just bad. But when we use Zionism, we're still not holding the individuals accountable. We can say Zionism all day, but unless Zionism is a specific list of people and Bibi's on that list, I don't want to hear about it, right? Because Netanyahu needs to go to prison for a very long time. But so does George Bush for thinking he's superior to the people of the Middle East. Needs to go to prison for a long time. Right? You know, like we need to transcend all of the group labels and literally hold the individual accountable, tie him to a tree for a week and throw tomatoes at him or tar and feather them in the streets. Like, that's the only thing that's going to fix it. Well, the thing is, yeah, maybe, but we don't know, like, for instance, who was actually responsible for 9/11. That could have very well been us. We were very aware of it. And George Bush could have easily gotten on a press conference and said, hey, everyone, there's people that are going to try to kill me for telling you this, but they're making me let 9/11 happen. George Bush not having the courage to do that means he's part of the problem. But even BlackRock and Vanguard, still, we don't want to use words that don't hold people accountable. We gotta name the names and bring those people to justice. We can't fix the problem because everyone just keeps on saying, oh, it's Zionism. Oh, it's BlackRock. Where are the indictments? You can't indict BlackRock. You can't indict Zionism. But you can indict George Bush. You can indict Netanyahu. You can indict the person who's making the decision to do the bad thing. You can indict the CEO of BlackRock. You can indict Bill Gates. Yeah, you can indict Soros. Yeah, whoever. You can't indict an idea. You can't indict a political movement. You can't indict a group. Technically, you can indict a group, but it would be wrong. It was wrong when it happened to the Native Americans and they lost 60 million people. It was wrong when you blamed the kulaks in Russia and probably 20, 30 million people off to Siberia to freeze and starve to death because they worked hard all their lives and somehow they became the enemy. It wasn't okay when it happened to the Armenians. It wasn't okay when it happened to the Jews. Whatever frequency and magnitude it actually happened, because there is some debate there, but whatever happened, if it did happen, it's not okay. Well, that's the thing, is that's why cheese and crackers, why we have to be the judge and the law enforcement and the military. We have to every day individually stand up for tyranny, which will eventually turn into a collectivized energy where we start to operate in an organized manner. And they will realize that they can't do any of this without our consent. Right? You know what I mean? Like, you're right. They own their institutions. And we need to stop acting like we're subservient to those institutions. We are their employers. Well, this is what I think, VG. You're right. At least a lot of people, maybe not everyone, but a lot of people have to stand up, and it's hard to do that. But what we can do right now individually is stand up to tyranny in our own lives, in at least the small ways that we can, and set a precedent. That's all we can guarantee do I'll probably get off the live in about a minute or two. I'm gonna get off this live. You guys are gonna be off this live too. And what we can do from here on out is make a promise as soon as we get up in the morning to live as righteously as we can. No lying, no cheating, no stealing, no killing. Add a little good into the world on top of that. And anytime we see tyranny, anytime we see abuse, physical, psychological, emotional, sexual, we stop it. We stand up against it. We call it out. We bear witness. That's what we can do. Like, that's the only solution. Look, I've thought about all these other ways. Like, we could create a social media where we only talk about good ideas, and then, the FBI shuts it down, We get organized, and I have no fucking clue how we're going to do that. And then, we're going to protest. Oh, they just turned Occupy Wall Street into Antifa. Fuck, right? We can start a movement that enriches impoverished communities that have been the victims of systemic racism, and bring in money to put grocery stores and good schools in these impoverished communities. Oh, they stole all of our money and our branding and started throwing rocks through Starbucks. They turn everything that we try to do into something terrible. So the only thing we can do is bear witness every day. Stand up for what is right, individually, in our own lives, and set a precedent. Create a culture of righteousness and enforce it fiercely. Don't let one person violate that space. It's like, voting doesn't matter. The system is completely broken. The last real great president was JFK, and he got his brains blown out by the people who now control the country. Matter of fact, folks. It's a dog and elephant show, dog and pony show, dog and donkey show, whatever you want to call it. It's not real at all. Your vote absolutely doesn't matter. Like, I promise you that. So that's all you can do. But Chris D'Elia has this joke where he's like, man, if you do anything super confidently, like maybe the first time people will look at you crazy, but that second time, he talks about shitting his pants in a Macy's. And he's like, yeah, that's what we're doing now. He's like, I bet you next time I go in, at least 3 people are going to be shitting their pants with me. So it's a funny joke, but the idea is like being so confident in something that you shake and unsettle another person. So be so confident that righteousness is key, and standing up to tyranny is what you should be doing, and be appalled by people that aren't, so much that you shake them. And when you shake them loose from the bullshit, you also probably get them a little closer to what they already know is true, like we said. This is all common sense. So, yeah. Yeah, I wish I had a meme. Even if it was a meme that made fun of me, I'd be fine with it, as long as I get to be memed. Nothing too drastically. Not a chaotic evil troll meme. Chaotic neutral would be fine. I'd settle for a chaotic neutral meme about me. But yeah, that's those are the keys to the mysteries of reality, folks. That's what we got. That's what we got working for us. Those are the major key alerts. DJ Khaled. All right, guys, love you. Have a wonderful night. Peace and love. It's a pleasure having everyone here.